Welcome everyone to another Connected Lane County Reach Higher event. Tonight's episode, tonight's webinar is going to look slightly different as it's 90 minutes long. We're going to have a nice conversation. We're going to answer some questions that you all asked in your registrations and then some that we've come up with as a panel. So we'll have some pretty structured Q&A at the beginning. And then we are going to open it up for any of your questions. And we are going to save at least 30 minutes to answer your questions. So if you, if we pass over something that you want more detail on, or you have questions that we haven't even approached, please write those down and please do wait for us to kind of open it up at the end for questions. I promise we will have enough time. Thank you all for being here. We are going to talk about apprenticeships. Apprenticeships, that's a word that I hear often in my job, and I think these folks do too, and they just feel very gray to me. They feel like everyone has a different interpretation of what the word actually means. There's so many different kinds, and so it's really hard to help guide students onto that next step without having a really good idea of what they are and what our local opportunities are. So I have a panel of experts from all around. And everyone's going to play a slightly different role. So I will let folks introduce themselves, and then we will get right into some of the questions that we have prepared for them. So I'm going to start with myself. I'm Lizzie Gray. I'm a project coordinator with Connected Lane County. And let's go Lee, Shireen, and Henry.
Hi, I'm Lee Kanowski. I am a construction sector specialist for the Lane ESD. I also work for 4J as a construction teacher. And I work for LCC in the evenings, teaching Apprenticeships 101.
Thanks, Lee.
Hi, all. My name is Shireen Vogel. I am CTE Regional Coordinator housed at Lane ESD, and we support all 16 school districts in Lane County with their CTE programs.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Henry Fields. I'm the workforce analyst with the Oregon Employment Department covering Lane and Douglas counties, which means I provide data on the two-county region to educators, to businesses, to interested job seekers. So I'm really excited to be with you all today. I cover more than just apprenticeships, but like Lizzie said, apprenticeships is something that comes up a lot.
Absolutely. Thanks for being here, Henry. Anthony, and then Lacey.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Anthony Samperio, and I'm a program analyst with BOLI's Apprenticeship and Training Division.
Thanks for being here.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lacey Guest. I am the College and Career Coordinator at Cottage Grove High School, and I worked this summer with Connected Lane County to do an externship about this very topic. So typically I do a lot of other things, much like Henry mentioned, not just apprenticeships, but this is one, as Lizzie mentioned, that tends to get a little bit sticky and a little confusing. So I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, thanks, Lacey. Lacey's externship was actually what really kicked us off and kind of started this conversation, because she was like, I want to learn more about apprenticeships. And I was like, so do we. So she spent her summer learning more, created a handout that we are going to share with you all here soon. And she can talk a little bit more about that experience. Folks on the call, I'm actually going to flip questions 1 and 2 because Henry, I know that you do have another commitment. So Henry, if you could start us off by just sharing some of the data that you've compiled for us. And then folks, if you do have a question for Henry, please feel free to ask it now so that he has the opportunity to answer it, as he won't be with us at the end of the call. And if you think of something later, feel free to email me and I'd be happy to pass it along.
Yeah, thanks so much. That's very kind of you. I was going to enter my contact information in the chat right now. Go ahead and copy that down if you'd like to. Like I said, my job is to provide data for you all. So please reach out to me if there's anything you want to talk about that we can't cover tonight. So in general, I could spend a little bit of time here. I could take easily the 90 minutes going through a bunch of PowerPoint slides showing all the data. I kind of want to keep it more just a general overview and invite any questions that people have. The basic takeaway that I would say, the orientation you need to know economically to apprenticeships is they are, generally speaking, high wage, high demand, and have fundamental strength in the way the economy is looking. So what exactly do I mean by that? Well, I can show you some examples of how to look up data on individual occupations, and I will do that. It's a great tool resource for you all to know how to access. But when we think about things like construction and manufacturing, construction in particular, which is obviously a heavy focus of apprenticeships, but any industry that is going to have a kind of earn as you learn model, we see a lot of built up demand and things that were difficult for businesses to hire for before the COVID mess that we find ourselves in now came to us. So it's gotten even more difficult. What I would say is, for those of you that are advising students in general, it's going to vary from job to job, what skills you're going to need to know and what you need to know about that job. But in general, it's a pretty good bet on an apprenticeship, and that's a good because it is so difficult to fill, because they tend to be high wage and high demand. So construction in particular, obviously in our area we are short a lot of housing, and so a lot of occupations that go into building that housing are going to be kind of your core apprenticeable trades. Let me take just a moment and show you all, if you are not familiar, some ways you can look up apprenticeship data on your own, and I'll go through some examples of what I'm talking about using a real example. I'm going to share my screen real quick. I'm hopeful that many of you know qualityinfo.org. That is our public-facing website. But let me just, basically, you could spend a lifetime learning all the tools that are hidden here. I want to highlight for folks the things that are the most important for you to know when you're talking with a student, advising them, or thinking about apprenticeships. Pretty much number one that I would highlight for you is occupation and wage information. And we're going to look up an apprenticeable trade to see how you can actualize that data for our area. Under occupation and wage informations for jobs and careers, you can go here and search the 800 occupations that are federally designated. These trade between states. There's a whole coding system that you don't need to know anything about. All you need to know is the job that you're looking for. So I could look up something like carpenters or electricians, a little bit more kind of like obvious standard. I actually thought it'd be interesting to show you an example that's a little bit more obscure, not the most common job people talk about, in case you're working with a student that is really interested in one particular type of thing. So glazier, people that install glass work, right, is an apprenticeable trade. It's a growing trade, but what does it look like here in Oregon? When you type in that word, first of all, you have a couple options of what to search among. You can pull up different types of occupations that search that keyword. We're not talking about automotive glass installers, but if you are interested in that, you would have that option. And you can select your area. We could look at Lane County. I kind of prefer to keep it on the gross level so you can zoom in and see what's different about Lane County, but you have that option available to you. And from top to bottom here, all the economic data that you would want to know about glazier. So I'm not even sure I'm entirely saying that word the correct way. I'm sure Lee or someone can tell me if I'm saying that wrong. You have job openings that allows you to do some kind of like real on the ground research with students. What are people hiring for right now, and what do they require? What are they paying? But when it comes to data, you're going to find something very similar to a lot of apprenticeable trades here. High wages, high demand, high growth projected. So that's what these next couple boxes use. And if you have a data inflected mindset, this is a good place for you to spend some time hanging out. You can see the wage range for many of the regions of Oregon. For this occupation in particular, we don't have Lane County specifically, but a lot of these occupations will. It has to do with the number of businesses doing that type of work in the area. For a smaller occupation like this, it's not always going to show up. But you can always draw some implications from things like the Mid-Valley or the Rogue Valley or Oregon overall, right? And you can see we have a full wage range, a full average hourly wage and average annual wage, and also some projections. How much is this projected to grow? Two things that I want to point out here are, as is the case with most construction occupations, a pretty good projected growth rate, 13%, anywhere between about 10 and 20% in the regions across Oregon. Which is very good for an occupation. We're projected to grow, I think, 15% on average across all jobs. But really fundamental to understand here is, yes, we have this certain amount of change between 2020 and 2030, 13% growth overall in Oregon. But if you compare that, the annual change openings, that's the number of new businesses that open up that require this, somebody's expanding their employment. In comparison with the annual replacement openings, it's generally about 1/10 as many. Meaning, 90% of our job demand comes from like replacement, people retiring or moving out of this occupation. That's not unique to construction, not unique to apprenticeable trades, but whenever you look at a job, you can be sure that there's a lot more demand built up by the fact that our workforce is aging. There's increasing retirement and turnover just in general. So really, there's lots of opportunities, and being able to nail that down to kind of talk to students about what those look like I find this to be really useful just to kind of get some general ideas of like, look, if you're interested in this work, there's going to be about 100 openings on average each year for the next 10 years across Oregon. Targeting where you want to live, how you want to work, how much you want to earn is a further discussion, but this is really useful for those type of things. And then we also have industries of employment where people work that do this job. You can click on this link to take you to a list of employers that exist within that industry. There's tons more here, such as specific knowledge, skills, and abilities. I'm not going to spend any more time walking through it. I would strongly encourage you, if you don't use this or haven't in a while, go ahead and pop onto qualityinfo.org and explore it to see kind of what is available to you, because I guarantee if you start going through the apprenticeable trades, you're going to find some information that is interesting to you. If you have any questions about what comes up, obviously reach out with any questions. I can help you navigate that. I did want to share, I wrote this article about rebuilding the pipeline, which is about apprenticeable trades, also available on Quality Info. It's about due for an update. It's been a year, but a lot of kind of fundamental stuff that you need to know about apprenticeable trades. A lot of what I said at the beginning, that there's strong demand, there has been strong demand for a long time, and that's been difficult to fill. So just in general, a list of skilled trade occupations, specifically in construction manufacturing, although obviously there are apprenticeships in other groups as well. Average wages, kind of comparing horizontally rather than vertically, just in one occupation. And then this is one thing that I wanted to highlight for general kind of knowing what's going on in the sector. This is from 2018, but similar data would happen in years since. The vast majority of openings in these skilled trades are considered difficult to fill. So all jobs, 57% of them were difficult to fill. That number, by the way, is now 76% in our most recent job vacancy survey to businesses. But things like tile and marble setters, sheet metal workers, plumbers, electricians, we're talking 95% plus of occupation in that being difficult to fill. This is businesses telling us this information. And so what I would advise a student is a combination of growth patterns, wages, and difficulty filling is a really good way to think about how demand for this job is likely to exist into the future. Obviously, when it comes to apprenticeships, there's some training that has to go along the way. There can be bottlenecks along that, but at least thinking about your various opportunities within this, I think, is a really valuable idea. So I'll stop sharing quality info and kind of close with some more data that we have available about apprentices themselves. I know there's a lot of interest in this group in particular in how that's changing. So there's not a lot of perfect data. I'm sure Anthony has some good data on what apprenticeships look like in Oregon. Generally speaking, it's been hard to compare over time, although there is data available that has essentially information on everyone who is a registered apprentice in 43 states and territories for the last 15 years or so. I mean, there is a gigantic Excel file that nearly burned my computer to the ground to try to open. But I really look forward to actually digging into that a little bit more. For the purposes of this discussion, all I was able to really get to was a discussion about the average age of apprentices, because I found an article floating around online that claimed that the average age of starting an apprentice was 42 years old. I'm just going to do a quick gut check in this room. I kind of thought that was questionable. According to looking at this more comprehensive, that was from, I think, Zippia.com. I'm not very familiar with that as a data source, but anyway, I was trying to evaluate that. Looking at this more comprehensive list, it looked a little bit more like the median age was 27 and the average age about 29. So that seems a little bit more reasonable to me. I really look forward to using this data source, by the way, as a way of looking forward at more comprehensive analysis. It doesn't seem from any data that we have right now that number has changed a lot in recent years in terms of our apprentices getting younger, are they getting older, whatever the case may be. But just know that there are some resources available to kind of analyze if you want to talk about apprenticeships writ large, or how Oregon compares, or trends over time. It's going to take me a while to figure out exactly how to use that, but if anybody's interested in that, I'd love to work on those questions with them. So yeah, those are all the prepared comments I have, but I do want to open up and see if anybody's got any questions, and we can maybe walk through any additional examples if anyone has some.
Excellent. Thank you, Henry. I did put, Mary Beth, I did see your question. I put a link to the article in the chat, and then also a link to just quality info. I subscribed to the newsletter right at the beginning of COVID, and I enjoy seeing what reports come through, and I know you can, you can kind of customize what kind of weekly or monthly report you'd like to see. So I would encourage folks subscribe. Like it's really interesting to know about what's available in our local area.
I will say too, if anybody has questions, research that they'd like to see, that is something that I get some of my best ideas from you all that work on the ground, you know, trying to think about what students are caring about right now. If there's a research question that I can chase down for you, I'd love to help out with that. That's a big boost for me as well.
That's great. Any questions? As I said right before he kind of started presenting, was that Henry does have to leave us before the end of this webinar. So if you have any questions around what he's just shared or thoughts, please do share them. And then his contact info is also in the chat. Henry, would you mind dropping that in one more time? I know a couple of folks have trickled in and it's possible they don't have access to it. Oh, okay.
There you go. Thank you.
Yeah. Alrighty. Well, I think I will move us on. Henry, thank you so much for being here and fitting us into your very busy schedule. So we appreciate it. And it looks like he froze right as I said that. It figures. Oh, there he is. Bye, Henry. Alrighty, Lacey, I am gonna kick it over to you. As I mentioned before, Lacey's externship with Connected Lane County last summer is really what kind of sparked this conversation around hosting a larger discussion around what apprenticeship opportunities are available to students. So Lacey, do you want to just talk briefly about what you spent your time doing last summer, and then we can also share the handout that you've created.
Absolutely. So as you mentioned, Lizzie, I do want to keep my section brief because I realize that I'm not the expert here, but I do want to kind of share, just as someone who's stationed in a school, working with high schoolers, trying to navigate this track, kind of what I learned a little bit this summer. The big thing that I learned was that I needed to learn a lot more. And I'm sure those of you watching and listening are feeling kind of the same way, and that's why you're here. And so I realized this summer, as I was reaching out and interviewing a lot of different people at BOLI or LCC, at the employment department. I mean, I talked to a lot of people this summer about apprenticeship in Oregon more generally, and apprenticeship in Lane County more specifically, and kind of what that looks like. And I realized that my confusion, I wasn't alone in it. And so I got some of these questions answered. And what I really ended up getting from what I started to term the brain trust was a ton of incredible ideas about how to kind of shift how we talk to students in schools and what we can do to better serve students in schools to kind of repair, or even, I'm going to say, build that like school to apprenticeship pipeline. Because as Henry mentioned, the average age, the number I have heard over and over again is around 26, 27, the average age of an apprentice when they get hired. And that's really disconcerting for those of us in schools working with 17 and 18-year-olds who are like really gung-ho and ready and prepared and maybe even have work experience. I know I work with kids every year, and I know I have to temper expectations a little bit, explaining to them that a plan B is a solid choice when they're pursuing apprenticeship. And so I realized this lack of information was just kind of a disservice to us and to our students. And so working with Lizzie, I advocated that we have this webinar and bring in some of the members of the Brain Trust that I spoke with this summer. But also moving forward, I hope to speak to more people who are apprentices and who are more boots on the ground type of folks, so that we can get a little more information about their specific experiences to get that information to our students as well. Is there anything else I missed, or can I kick it back to you, Lizzie?
No, that was excellent. I'm going to share a link to Lacey's handout in this drive. Please feel free to download this and use it as a resource. And I will also share my screen. Lacey, if you just kind of want to walk folks through the handout.
Sure.
That would be great. Here I go.
So as I was talking to folks, I ended up just writing down a whole list of ideas that they had about how we could strengthen the connection between schools and apprenticeship here in Oregon and in Lane County. But I also ended up getting a ton of resources, and you'll notice under Employment Department Publications, that third one down there is the article that Henry was talking about.
great.
So that's definitely just a really good way to get some foundational information. And a lot of you guys are already familiar, I'm sure, with a couple of these websites as well. But I did just get some good information for educators. And then if you scroll down a little bit, there's some resources that are directed a little bit more towards students. And there is some overlap, but what I've noticed is that when I send students to like the Bowley site, for example, they seem a little overwhelmed and don't really know what to make of it. And so some of these resources that were shared with me this summer do seem like they're a little more like geared towards 17 and 18-year-old students to understand. And while all of the kiddos seem to be a little more tech savvy since the pandemic, I do think there's something to be said for a really user-friendly, like kid-facing kind of interface. And so that's what some of these resources are here as well. Oregon Apprenticeship, I think, is a really fantastic place. I pointed 2 students toward that just today. You'll notice it's listed both under educator resources and student resources. It just has some really amazing resources in terms of finding open apprenticeships, looking at things from a bird's eye view in Oregon down to county or to apprenticeship committee, looking at what's expected and needed for different apprenticeship opportunities and trades. And so I really recommend, if you're kind of new to navigating apprenticeship, that you start with Oregon Apprenticeship and you start with the Bowley website to get a little more information. But you already took the best first step and you're going to talk to these experts today. So yeah, I'll pass it back to you.
Thank you very much. As Lacey said, hopefully this is a document that you can, share with students and use as a resource moving forward. So thank you again, Lacey, for the time that you spent last summer, and maybe you'll be up for Apprenticeship Externship 2.0 this summer. Application opens February 14th. Everyone, connecttoLaneCounty.org. Alrighty, Lee, talk to us. We want to know, what the heck is an apprenticeship? I heard Henry use a lot of language that I've never heard before that I really liked. But please talk to us about apprenticeships, what types are out there, registered, non-registered, company specific, just kind of lay it on us.
Thanks. I have the opportunity to go out and talk to parents. I get an opportunity to talk to counselors and students throughout Lane County. So I've put together a little slideshow, just more to organize my thoughts so I don't go off down some rabbit hole on the questions that I'm asked most of the time when I go to speak with students. And some of the information that's out there, some of the, people just don't know how some apprenticeships work. So give me a second here. I'm going to share my screen and to adjust everything. And I'll just kind of go through my little slide deck and help me kind of keep track here. Does that look good for everyone?
It does.
Let's see here. So I get asked to talk about apprenticeships. I've been an apprentice. I was at the IBEW for a while. I've been in Teamsters unions for a while. So I've done some of this stuff in a previous life other than in education. So what is an apprenticeship? I'll let you read on this thing. It's just another way of earning some money to obtain some experience. And some of these are portable skills and some are not portable skills, but an apprentice is just something that we do after work. It's a way to gain some skills and knowledge. There are types of apprenticeships out there. There are registered apprenticeship programs, which means they go through an apprenticeship approval committee, and like somebody like Bowley, they're the ones that say these are apprenticeship programs. But what the difference is, these are portable skills, which means if I start out as an electrician under a registered apprenticeship program, I can move around and still take my portable skills with me. I can still take my classroom experience with me, and I could move up to Portland. I could go over to Idaho. I can go anywhere I want in a registered apprenticeship program. We also have non-registered apprenticeship programs. They are not sponsored by Bowley. And these are not portable. We have some great companies right here in the Eugene Springfield area that are non-registered apprenticeship programs, which pretty much means you go to work for them, you go through their apprenticeship program, and you stay with this company the rest of your life. There's plenty of room for growth inside these companies. There's plenty of room to move around, but you're pretty much working for this company for life, for as long as you'd like to. And then we have some companies out there who claim they have an apprenticeship program, but they really don't. It's just some on-the-job training. You can advance inside some of these companies, but it really doesn't have a standard of skills or trades to meet any kind of an apprenticeshipable type skill. Some of the things I'm asked for, what do apprenticeships need? What do you need to know? Well, to get into an apprenticeship program, a high school diploma or a GED, a minimum of 1 year of algebra, C or better. And these have to be on some kind of a transcript, so these committees can look at this. Math 60, 65, 70 with C or better, college algebra. You must be 18 years of age to be accepted into an apprenticeship program, but we also have a pre-apprenticeship program that you can do under 18 years of age. So I want to make that clear. We can't just go into an apprenticeship program. The local apprenticeship committees around here, they have little different ways of getting students in. For instance, the inside electricians, limited energy, plumbers, they use a point system. And points, I'll go over a point system here in a little bit. The HVAC sheet metal trades here in Eugene, they kind of have a random draw. They do have a list and they do take from the top of the list down, but they prefer to be called a random draw process. And then we have the carpenters who require an orientation and an interview. When I got into mine, I had to go through an interview, I had to do some math testing, and I had to have a sponsor to get in. We no longer have some of those requirements, but in some of the trades, you might have some different requirements. LCC uses, we gear towards point systems. We try to give students the most amount of points possible through classes and experiences here at LCC, so they can, again, put on points for their applications for apprenticeship programs. Ways that you can help students earn points is high school diploma, GED, and I put valid driver's license here. That they do give points for that. We know that driving has changed from when I was young. It seemed like when I was young, we all wanted our license right away. It doesn't seem that much anymore. People are prolonging their time before they get the driver's license. But most apprentices are asked to drive the company vehicle or to drive themselves to some remote locations to work. So a valid driver's license, I don't know why it says valid, a driver's license is necessary. And take some industrial arts classes, take some CTE classes in your high schools, and then some prior work experience. Connected Lane County can help with some of those work experiences. Check with your counselors. Lacey would be able to help with some work experience, something in the summertime, something after school, something local. Sometimes like working for your parents in the garage, that's kind of hard to kind of document, but I'd write it all down when I go for my interview. And then we have some lane pack stuff that's more to come later on. We'll talk about that. Some more ways that students can earn points is taking a class called Trade Skills Fundamentals. That happens to be a class that I teach here at LCC. It's also a class that is articulated in some of our high schools across Lane County. And if it's not articulated in your school and you have somebody interested who might want to teach this, please contact me and we'll get them articulated so they can earn the 4 college credits along with credits in your school. Other things you can take, some you can take here at LCC, some you might offer in your school. Some they might take in an evening class out here at LCC is wiring for the trades, some plumbing. There's like a 2-credit class for plumbing, introduction to plumbing, to see if you like it or not. Drafting CAD classes in your school, construction classes in your school. If you do anything with electrical theory, electronics, robotics, those type of things. If you offer any type of blueprint reading, CAD stuff, for instance, has some blueprint reading in it. Algebra classes, geometry, trigonometry. If you offer welding, if you have first aid CPR that a student can earn while they're in high school through a health class, perhaps that's a great industry recognized credential. And then OSHA 10 is another one that they can learn. They can get online. It's a 10 to 13 hour online course. And this is again, another industry recognized certificate that gets points towards apprenticeship programs. Oh, I wanted to show you a little something that Who was that? It was just before us. I lost his name here for a second.
Henry.
Henry, thank you. Henry had the same slide I did. And I like showing parents this slide. This is the hourly wage that some of our apprentices get. And the other thing I like to show our apprentices, I ask them, so what kind of apprenticeship programs do you know about? And they go, plumbers, electricians, and then they kind of hesitate right there. Look at all the different types of apprenticeshipable jobs there are. I think there's like 36 of them. This isn't even all of them. And then look at the projected openings and the hourly wage. Sometimes when I talk to parents and students, I go, and what are you going to get with your bachelor's degree? And where does that take you? So we can earn while we learn. Sometimes they leave these apprenticeship programs with little or no debt. Here at LCC, you're 2 credits away from an associate's degree and you have your apprenticeship certificate as well. I encourage students to take business classes along with their apprenticeship program, because now we want to be the owner of an electrical company or a roofing company rather than just employees. So I try to encourage business classes for that. All right, let me get rid of this one and then readjust. Sorry. Find all the corners. Oh, what else am I asked here? If you'd like to know about more opportunities here at Lane Community College, you can follow this link. I bet I even have it up here for us.
I can drop it in the chat too, Lee.
That'd be great. Follow this link. It will tell you all of the requirements that are needed. There is a, come on, work for me. Once you get there, there's an apprenticeship flyer that you can print out and hand out to students. This gives them information on how to do apprenticeship programs at LCC. This is if you just come right out of high school and you know you want to do something with your hands, you know you want to go into an apprenticeship program. This is a great way to go. There's also the BOLI website that Anthony will probably talk about a little bit and how to navigate that. If not, go there, click under apprenticeships and start looking at the world of apprenticeships there. There's some wonderful videos on there that show women in the trades. They show all different kinds of people doing these jobs. So students can identify with some of these students that they see from the BOLI website. And then last but not least, and I think Shireen will probably talk about this a little later on, is the Lane Pack. This is our pre-apprenticeship program where we can get students a kickstart into the apprenticeship programs while they're still here in high school. I can't emphasize enough what this will do for our students once they complete the Lane Pack. It gets them some preference to hiring or to applying for some of our apprenticeship programs. There was a statistic that said back in before Measure 9, I believe it is, that happened a long time ago, the average age of apprentice was like 20 years old. And now the average age of an apprentice is 27 years old. It takes most students about 10 years to bobble around. They want to become a rock star. They realize that's not going to make it. They want to be a video game designer. And then they finally realize, you know what I really liked in high school? I like working with my hands, or I really enjoyed that experience I had one summer. And they end up here in my LCC class paying like $600 for a trade skills fundamentals class that gives them points and gets them on their way to apprenticeship programs. But they can do this right in their own home high schools as well. So I really encourage you. I have about 100 students come through the LCC program every year. Most of them come here only knowing of electricians and plumbers, and then I get to open their eyes up to all the different apprenticeshipable jobs out there and the wages and demands. Some want to stay here in Lane County, some want to move away. There's something for everyone in apprenticeships. So I'd love to answer more questions. I'd love to come out to your schools and talk to parents, students, and teachers. So if there's anything I can do for you, along with apprenticeships, I just have the luxury of playing in high schools and here at LCC. Been in this myself. I really would like to come out and talk. explain to people what this is. I think some parents I know think the only way to measure success is with a college degree. And I'd just like to show them different ways that their students can be successful and do what they love to do.
And earn a wage that can support a household. Yeah.
Definitely. I look at those wages and go, oh, I should have stayed with trades. But
Isn't it bad? I think we all do.
and I tell most of the students in my night class, and in 4 years, you'll be making more money than I am. So
Yeah.
enjoy that.
Oh my gosh, Lee, incredible. Those slides just, took my knowledge of apprenticeships and multiplied it by 100. Plus, you just put me at ease. Your voice is so relaxing.
Well, I've been doing this a while, so thank you.
Polly asks, will Lee's slideshow be available? Lee, are you happy to share those slides?
For a small fee, I will, yes. Yes, I'll share
Awesome.
those.
I'm going to send tomorrow to everyone who is registered for this webinar. I will send a link to this recorded video, which will be up on our YouTube channel. I'll send Lee's slides. I will send a handout and anything else that we cover today. I promise I'll send it all in one email. And Polly, your second question about how do we invite Lee to come talk to our students? Lee, do you want to put your email in the chat?
Which one? Yes,
Which
I'll
one
put
is
one
a
of
great
those in
question?
there.
Your
Yeah,
Lane ESD one would be awesome.
that'd be great. Then I can put it on the calendar. I'd love to do that.
Excellent.
Thank you.
So Lee, we're not done with you. You mentioned the point system a couple of times, and obviously Lane Pact is an excellent way to kind of build some points as a part of that system. And so could you just talk to us a little bit about what this point system is? And then I'll invite Anthony to kind of join in so we can talk about how we can help students earn points while still in high school.
Yeah, the point system, like you get points for a driver's license, you get points for taking CTE classes, you get points for doing work. And then you get points for your interview. All of these points put you on a list, a ranking list. And let's say I go in at they open up the books. Most places open up the books once a year, like in June. So you go through the interview system, you bring your portfolio, you show them all of your documentation, they give you points for things that you have there, and then they put you on a list. And you might be number 50 on a list of 250 people. You stay on that list, and they take people off the top of the list as they need apprentice. It's highly likely that you would be on that list for up to 2 years, right? It doesn't roll, you don't roll right off the top. Now with the pre-apprenticeship program, with some of our partners, you will go to the top of the list, or you'll get some preferential times that you can go in and apply for these jobs. So the point system works just like, anything you get. I think the most you can get is around 250 points. They do give preference to like people who've been in the military or people who've had some, maybe you have been into a non-apprenticeship program and now want to go into a registered apprenticeship program. And then your list comes, as you get to the top of the list, you're invited to go to a job and you're invited to start the apprenticeship program. There's each apprenticeship program has slightly different ways that they count points. So sometimes my class at LCC here is worth 10 points in some trades. It's worth 5 in the other trades. So there's not like a standard, hey, everybody gets 10 points for this class. Driver's license can be 5 points. A CDL could be worth 15 points because it's a higher demand type thing. So, but accumulating points is kind of the game. That's how we get there. I sat on my IBEW for almost a year before I got on. So
IDW.
IBEW, International Electrical Union.
Got it.
Oh, and that's the other thing. I'm always asked, union or non-union. And I say, this is not our job. Our job is to bring kids to the doorsteps of both of these places and then let them decide exactly what meets their needs. It's not up to me. I highly recommend we don't talk either way. There's pros and cons in both. Sometimes I give them the facts, the pros and the cons of each one. But again, it's not up to me to ever say one is better than the other.
Great point.
Anything
Thanks,
else?
Anthony, is there anything else that you think or you've seen, high school students do to earn more points outside of what Lee has covered?
Well, I think Lee covered it pretty well. I think something else to consider is not all of our programs have utilized the point system for their selection qualifications or for their selection procedures. It really is dependent. Sometimes some of the more technical trades like the plumbers, the sheet metal workers, the electricians, fire sprinkler installers, they're going to be having some of these more stringent requirements, where other trades like the laborers, the iron workers, the bricklayers, maybe the cement masons may have a lot smaller of minimum qualifications. I just did a presentation for DHS self-sufficiency workers, and to show them the contrast for the bricklayers, minimum qualifications, 18 years of age. For the iron workers, you need to have a high school diploma or a GED with a qualifying score of 2.0 or better. You need to have the C or better in algebra, and you need to score very well on their placement tests. So really, depending on the occupation, is going to depend on what is needed for minimum qualifications. I saw someone in the chat ask for the point systems. I'm going to put a link in there, and I can go ahead and, if you don't mind, I'll share my screen to show you how to navigate, because it can be a little tricky when it comes to navigating. And there it is. I haven't used Zoom. We don't use Zoom anymore with Bowley, so I haven't used it in a while. But hopefully folks can see my screen.
Yeah, yep, we can see it.
Okay, so that link I put is going to take you here to apprenticeship trades, right? And so when we're looking at them, all of our apprenticeship programs are going to be listed here by occupation. So for instance, let's take a carpenter standard, which is a carpenter program. So if we go to the carpenter program, we'll see carpenter apprenticeship opportunities. These are all 5 registered carpenter programs that are going to be based here around the state. Let's take the Pacific Northwest Carpenters Joint Apprenticeship Training Council. They are a statewide program, and I believe they have a training center in Eugene. So we can click view details. They are currently not accepting applications, and we can see that here at the top. Again, this is a statewide training program, and their main office is here in Portland. But if we look at their PNCI website, Pacific Northwest Carpenters Institute, it'll show where they have training centers. But if we scroll down here to active approved standards, this is going to be a very, very technical document. And if we click on this, it's going to open a PDF of a standard which shows everything that has to do with their apprenticeship program. So I want to show you folks where, if they take points, if they have a scoring rubric, it's usually on the bottom somewhere, because that's where we ask them to put it. I know this is a huge wall of text and I don't want to go through each of them, but essentially, looking at this, I don't see that they have a point qualification. If we go back up, usually the second or third box will show their minimum qualifications. So you really want to look at what minimum qualifications are for a program. We can see here for the carpenters for this program, they only have the age 18 years of age as a minimum qualification. So when they have application opens, you definitely want to encourage your students to apply. As Lee mentioned, as long as they're 18 at the time they're processed as an apprentice, they're good to go. So that's something to consider. I also wanted, while I'm here, one more quick time to show the OregonApprenticeship.org website that Lacey mentioned. I think this should be your go-to resource when it comes to anything apprenticeship that you want to share with the student or with the parent. This website is a lot more user-friendly. I think the Bowley site, we just saw what the Bowley site looked like, and it's not the easiest to navigate. What I would recommend is using this menu selection, going to search program openings, and it's going to bring up a mini map of the state here. For folks that are in Lane County, you can see here we have our own way of naming or carving up the state. So Lane County is going to be area 3 for us. So you can even just search by area 3. And then if you scroll down here to the bottom, you may only see a few blips here in your county. But what I would recommend is using this bottom kind of list of programs, because it shows where programs are operating in multiple parts of the state, right? So let's say we take this drywall finisher position. It looks like this program operates in areas 1, 2, and 3, which is the Portland metro area. I think Lynn Benton, or like the Mid-Valley area, Lane County, and then Central Oregon. So if we click on this drywall finisher occupation, it's going to redirect us to drywall finisher apprenticeship programs. Here's that program that we saw earlier. We can go to view details. We can see they're not accepting applications. Here's a contact information for that program. And here's their standards, so you can look up their minimum qualifications. So, you know, I think there are, like I said, there's several ways to access this information. But I do think, you know, using the OregonApprenticeship.org website is going to be the fastest way I found. And when I'm dealing with external partners, it's what I often ask them to use instead of the BOLI. The BOLI website, you can do it as well, but it's a lot more bogged down. You're not going to get that regional focus like you are on the OregonApprenticeship.org website. And I don't know how to stop sharing.
It should be, hold on, I might be able to kick you off. There you go. I booted
Cool.
you. Yep, it's a tiny little bar. It's hard to see every time.
I didn't even see. I know the bar, but I didn't see it. There is one more thing. I'm sorry. I know I'm talking fast and I'm talking.
That's okay.
But I want to make sure that this next part is captured by counselors. And Lee can probably back me up on this. Construction is the most unforgiving industry I think I've ever been around. I used to work at a pre-apprenticeship program in Oakland, California, where we trained folks for a career in the construction trades. I had people who have start times as early as 6 a.m. And we will tell you 6 a.m. means you're at the gate with your boots on, with your belts on, ready to go. I think in most jobs, we think we might get like a little 5-minute leeway. But in construction, they will give you 2 checks. And Lee knows 2 checks means, you know, we'll see you next time. So really preparing students to understand that, hey, like this is a big commitment. There's some big money behind you with training. Most apprenticeship programs are free of cost or have a very low cost to the apprentices. This earn and learn model, I think, is a really good way for someone to really carve themselves into the middle class and to have those family sustaining wages. But like I said, you may get that one chance to prove yourself. And if you're late, you know, if you fail a drug test, which a lot of our programs do have, including for marijuana, you don't get another chance. It could be, you know, up to 6 months to a year before you're able to apply again. So really getting that professional soft skill development, which is, I think, in a trades specific workforce readiness skills, which I think is a good segue to our Lane Pact program that's here. But Lizzie, I'll kick it back to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Anthony. That's all super, super helpful info. Lee, I see it.
Yeah, I just wanted to add a couple more things. Thanks, Anthony. Anthony is really the expert on the BOLI stuff. I just kind of use the website, play around. But I did want to say that there's some apprenticeship programs right now that are kind of on hold because of the world we live in right now. Their instructors aren't back in classes teaching their apprenticeship. So if it does say it's closed, it's just kind of on hold until they can get their instructors back in to teach our apprentice. I wanted to say that the sheet metal people here in our Eugene Springfield area, they have their books open all the time. You can apply at any time, and they take students off the list every 2 months. And they also have a way that once you get on the list, you have to be 18. You can work for them as a classified worker. You're not an apprentice. You're just kind of doing some things for the apprentice around there. And what else? Oh, and the electrical up in Tangent, Oregon, when you apply, somebody asked, does it cost anything? The application fee is for them is $35. They're the only ones I know that charge for an application fee. Again, once you get in, they might charge you a couple $100 for something, but they take it out of your paycheck like $1 a week. So you don't even notice that you're paying for anything.
So the
LCC classes,
oh, sorry,
the LCC apprenticeships, though, in most cases you will have to pay for some of your classes. But I've also been here where they, if you get a B or better in some of the classes at LCC, your company will reimburse you for that class.
Great, great, great. So Kelly, we see your question about FAFSA, and Lee, I feel like what I'm understanding for you is that it's not really needed. It's kind of a moot point.
If you come to LCC and you use your FAFSA, you would declare that you're in a construction project. In a construction, that's your focus. That's what you want to get your associate's degree in. And then you can start taking and use your FAFSA money for the apprenticeship classes.
Great, thank you. I do, before we kind of jump in, Shireen and Lee, to Lane Pact and Youth Trades Academy, there have been a couple questions that have popped up in the Q&A box that Anthony has kindly answered, but I do kind of want to read them out loud for everyone to hear. The question was asked, could a student apply before they're 18? And Anthony said, yes, some programs allow applicants to be 17, but they must be 18 at the time of starting the apprenticeship.
So just to elaborate on that a little bit,
Yeah.
like a program like the electricians, it's gonna be a months-long process. So when they first submit their application, they can be 17, and then there's a test that the electricians have. There's an interview process, and then they do their selection. So there's some time there. A program, let's say like the iron workers, they might take applications every Wednesday. They could take an application on a Wednesday and put you to work on a Friday. So there's not like it really depends on the program. I think for most insurance reasons, folks have to be 18 years old, regardless of if, like, I graduated high school and my birthday was in September, graduated in June, so I was 17 at the time. So I would have had to wait, right, those extra 3 months. But that's just something, when we say like applicant, some programs have longer application periods. So when you're 17, they want you to get ready, but other programs, it's like you can sign the book and get dispatched the next day. So it really just depends.
Thanks, Anthony. The second question was, just talking about how a lot of this conversation is centered around students because that's the world that most of us work in. But just curious about any advice for older adults that are looking for a career change. So are there any apprenticeships that might be better suited for older adults? And Anthony said that all the programs we're talking about are open to all ages, and the information and the advice that we're giving now would be the same, be it a student or a person looking to change careers. And I guess I'm kind of interested, are there any, I hear about electrical work, plumbing and construction being really hard physically on your body. Are there any trades that seem to be less taxing physically? I see a big smile from Anthony.
I'm gonna say no. I think there's taxing and there's like less taxing, but there's none that are not taxing. We do have some manufacturing programs manufacturing apprenticeship programs where they're using some very advanced tool or die making machinery, but you're still going to be on your feet 8 hours a day. We also have programs like we have some CNA programs, so certified nursing assistant programs throughout the state. So that's maybe not as brawny as construction work, but I'm sure that work is taxing in its own respect. But as far as the construction industry goes, Lee, what do you think?
I'm just racking my brain. I'm like, nope, not one. That one takes, your back. That one takes your legs. So no, it's good. And that makes me think. Some of our best apprentices are our sports team students. Both in goes. It's a team sport, right? Construction is a team sport. We do things as a team. It's physical. It's like working out. It's like, those students who come from they don't have to be starting varsity, but if they come from a background where they play sports and enjoy that teamwork type of things, they seem to enjoy the apprenticeship programs.
That's great. I do see, I see quite a few questions in the Q&A and then one in the chat. I see you. I promise we'll get to your questions. I do just want to kind of get through what we have planned here, and then we'll open up the rest of the evening to answering those questions. So Lee and Shireen, I'd love to give you the floor to talk. We've heard about Lane Pact. Please talk to us about the Youth Trades Academy. How do students get involved, and how do they experience different trades to see what they like?
I'll kick off here, and then Lee, I'll let you kind of fill in the gaps. You are the resident expert here, I would say. So Lane Pact, which is an acronym for Lane Pre-Apprenticeship Construction Trades, was approved through BOLI as a registered pre-apprenticeship 2 years ago. So this is just right as COVID was hitting. We initially launched it and just had 2 high schools involved, but we're really fortunate. It is now available to all of our high schools in Lane County. There is, and I don't want to go too far down a rabbit hole in the details because there is a checklist link and more information in the information sheet that Lacey gave. But there is, that we had to go through pretty intensive application and approval process through BOLI. And part of that was to get approval from some of our local registered apprenticeships, coordinators, and work with their committees to see what sort of, whether it's extra points, whether it's preference on the list, what would they give a student who actually successfully completed the Lane Pact? So we worked with that. We included also some of our registered apprenticeships. So some of our industry partners locally were really part of that process. So we got a lot of buy-in. And really what you'll see is essentially kind of what Lee had in his slideshow presentation, all of those things that allow for students to get extra points. It's all sort of packaged up as a checklist, if you will, of items that a student in high school, and there's no time period, they can take 3 years to complete it or a year, but it has the math, it has the trade skills fundamentals class that Lee referenced. It's got the OSHA 10 certification. It has a number of things. I'm going to segue real quick into the other item because one of the items on the checklist is giving students an option to do the Youth Trades Academy as one of the activities on the checklist. Youth Trades Academy started many years ago here in Lane County, and we've been fortunate enough to keep it. We weren't able to do it last year, but we were able the year before. It's coming back this year. And yes, we're very excited. And that application is actually going to go live probably, what did we say, Lee, in a couple weeks?
Couple weeks, yeah.
Couple weeks. And yes, so that will be happening. A little bit different design. It will not be at Springfield High School, or Thurston High School rather, but it will actually be at Lane Community College, and also toggling LCC and what was the outfit, the other in Springfield?
The Sheet Metal Institute.
Sheet metal, yes, thank you. So more details are going to come out on that. We're going to include information to all the counselor, the Reach Hire group, and all of the folks across the county. So you'll get, details on that. But that will be an opportunity for students to really get kind of a deep dive, hands-on with a variety of different trades, to just more than just hearing somebody talk, or even more than just a tour, but really actually getting their hands into it and deciding to figure out what is it if they're not quite sure. So Lee, I'm going to let you add some more there.
I wanted to talk about, somebody said, how do older people apply? I just want to make it clear that the Lane Pact is for high school students. I've had some requests from some other people on how they could join the Lane Pact, but it is for our high school students. There are some pre-apprenticeship programs, if you go to the BOLI website, that you can direct some of our graduates to, perhaps. Another thing that we're working on, we're not there yet, is we're trying to link our Lane Pact with LCC. If a student is not able to finish the Lane Pact in high school, we're not there yet, so I wouldn't advertise this, but we're working on making that available so they can finish up at LCC and then get that pre-apprenticeship certificate and those points. And now I forgot your question, Shireen.
Well, I guess I didn't really have a question. It was just to have you fill it in. I would just say the specific dates, we have certain dates that we've picked out. They will be like noon to 3-ish. So similar hours that we've had in the past. And more information to come on that.
Yeah,
But
this will be in the month of April and May. We'll end up at the end of May. It'll be 6 weeks long. It'll be 2 days a week. And like you said, it'll be from like 12:30 to 3:30. Transportation, we'll discuss transportation, but for right now, it's the students will find their way over here to LCC. They'll be in this classroom right here, taking the classes for 2 of the 3 sections.
All right. I think we're at the point on this webinar where we are truly just going to open it up. So if you've had any questions, over the last hour that you are just itching to ask, please ask them. No question is a bad question. Truly believe that. That is something we stand by here. So Kelly, I do see your hand. I'm going to allow you to talk. So beware, it's going to unmute you for a second. Feel free to ask the question to whichever panelist it applies to.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So that last thing you were talking about in regards to, Lee, is that the RTech 105 class that you were describing the other day, where it's like a survey class that students can come to LCC to do?
No, this is an extension of the Lane Pact I was talking about. The RTech 105 has not been approved by LCC's board yet.
Oh, okay. And so that's available to high school students, couple days a week, 12:30 to 3 or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
How do you anticipate that fitting into a high school student schedule? If it's 2 days a week, do I negotiate with my English and health teachers that afternoon when I have those classes the other 3 days a week? How do you anticipate that working out for our high school students?
It's a great question.
Lacey, can you answer that? Because I feel like you've had experience with this.
Sure. So yes, it's a negotiation. Since it is only 2 days a week for 6 weeks, and it usually is in the spring, I haven't had too much pushback from admin because it often, well, a couple of years ago, like right before COVID, they were all seniors. So they were getting themselves there. They were on track to graduate. We made sure that they all had good grades. And we made them go talk to their teachers about the classes they were going to miss. But especially the last trimester for us of their senior year, like we felt like this was important enough to advocate for them if they knew this was the track they wanted to go down, and just had to negotiate school-wide to make it happen.
So do you, I don't know if I'm muted anymore. Do you anticipate that's kind of the target population, is maybe seniors don't have that many classes, spring term, senior year, they could afford to do this because they're already sort of halfway out the door. So it's not necessarily for an 11th grader who really is just exploring. You want maybe more mature people who have an inkling that this is a direction they want to go.
Kelly, the ones that I've had in the past, they were mostly seniors. They did have openings in their schedule, or they were already in a CTE program and they were allowed to then leave the CTE classroom for a double period every day. That's where most of them come from.
All right, thank you.
And I will just add one more thing, is that we do, just because of COVID this year, we have a limited space availability for this. And we are trying to reach across as much of a diversity across the county, and get as many diverse students as we can. So that is just, I just want to put that out there, that, there will be a limit. That said, there's some exciting things happening around possible summer opportunities. So if we get this influx of students, let's just say we get 50 applications, we'll have these sort of ready to go students that are excited to explore, that we could look at potentially fitting in And I'm kind of looking at you too, Lizzie. I mean, there may be some ways that we can creatively support and create opportunities for them outside of the youth trades.
Yep, you read my mind. Thanks, Kelly. Alrighty, there was a question in the chat from a while ago. So if a student didn't get a good grade in math, can they test to show their knowledge and get a better score?
From what I understand, that would be up to each individual apprenticeship program they're applying for.
Yeah, so a way a student could get their math up is by taking like a semester at a community college, depending on the trade. The electricians do have a like a specific math curriculum that's available through their national institute. And I've helped folks who maybe we weren't able to find a transcript from them, or they knew they didn't have algebra with a C or better from a high school transcript, and they take that math course. I think it's between like $60 and $100 from what I remember. And that was like 3 or 4 years ago when I was still working at a pre-apprenticeship program. So those would be the two avenues I would think where a program would substitute, poor high school math grades or something like that.
Also wanted to add that the GED, they take that as a math requirement. Inside the trade skills fundamentals class, we cover all the math that is required. So it's a great time to retest right after you go through a trade skills math in the fundamentals course. So there are ways we can get those test scores raised for our students.
Thanks, Lee and Anthony. Julie, you have been so patient, so I'm going to read a couple of your questions here. Julie asks, how long does it take for an applicant to be taken off of the list? And I think what I heard was on average 2 years or as long as 2 years.
I would go as long as 2 years. Most times a program can carry forward from year to year if the individual on the list hasn't been pulled. For some programs, it could be 1 day. If for some programs, it could be 10 months. It's really just dependent on the program and the demand that they have for apprentices. But again, like Lee mentioned, you can be carried forward if you keep your contact information up to date. Apprenticeship programs don't want to keep apprentices out of work or not on the list or on their not working, because then they can't recruit new apprentices through the division. So that's one of our policies. So we try to get all the apprentices that they have working before we allow them to open a new recruitment.
It also depends on where they want to work. I've had students on the list up here in Eugene. We're, I think, in Region 5, Anthony, is that what we are here in Eugene? And went down to Roseburg and got Region 3. Yeah, thank you. And then we went down to Roseburg and got taken off the list the next day. So if you want to move around the state, you can get off the list quicker.
Wow. So other than going out of state or moving around, are there notoriously faster lists in any specific trade? Insider knowledge?
I would say like some of the trades that have, I don't like using this terminology, but we're all friends here. Some of the more brawny trades have very high turnover rates, like the iron workers, the cement masons, the bricklayers, the laborers. They have high turnover because it's hard. It's physically demanding work. If you're an iron worker, you've got I-beams swinging at you from all directions. You're carrying, reinforced steel or rebar, and that stuff's not light. And you're working in the elements, regardless of if it's raining or if it's cloudy out or, if there's inclement weather. So I would think some of the trades that have, again, that are more brawn are going to have a better opportunity. And that's not to say that some of our other trades that are more technical or that use more applied sciences or applied math have a longer waiting period, because they know, those contractors know what their work projections are and how many apprentices they're going to need. So when they do a recruitment, it's because they need apprentices to go to work, right? So I would also add in like the popularity of some trades is going to determine how long you sit on the out of work list, we'll call it, or on the ranked pool of eligibles. Carpenters are very popular, plumbers are very popular, electricians are very popular. So when I mentioned some of these other crafts like the bricklayers, you know, tile setters, glazers, like our other panelists mentioned earlier, these are trades maybe people aren't going to know about unless, you know, a high school counselor was like, hey, I was at an apprenticeship training and they said that these trades might be better or might be quicker to get you to go to work. So, you know, those are all factors to consider.
I can absolutely see that happening. Truly, I can. That's what these retire panels are all about.
Hey, I'd like to mention one thing I think I forgot to mention was apprenticeship programs last from 2 to 5 years. So you can go into a quicker one. You can go into scaffold erecting, painting, laborer ones. They do have those. Those are like 2-year ones. So I just wanted to make sure I mentioned that.
Thanks, Lee. Kelly, I am going to invite you to unmute for your second question.
Sorry, I was just typing them in there. I don't want to monopolize anything here. So a couple questions. Is the Lane Pact open to GED students?
So one of the pieces, and I also should have mentioned this, but one of the pieces that is sort of a critical arm of Lane Pact is that they are attached to our CTE programs in the schools in some way. So you'll see on the checklist, but one of the pieces is a student has to have completed 1 year in a CTE program of study. So that is kind of that's a piece. Now, when I won't say if, when LCC gets the Lane Pact approved, or a version of Lane Pact approved on the LCC campus, I could see some awesome being able to support those students. Don't you agree, Lee?
I do. It would have to be somebody who is in the GED program, who's graduated from the GED program, and then can go back and check all the boxes in the Lane Pact. Not to say it couldn't happen, but it'd be interesting. I'd like to find that, because if they could
Explore
check
that.
all the boxes,
Yep.
it's definitely okay.
So it's really open to students who are connected to a high school, going to a comprehensive high school and a school that has CTE programs. So ECHO students would be excluded from this because we don't really have CTE programs where they could take a year's worth of CTE articulated classes.
Unless they already had it at their previous high school, or you can find a way to engage them while they attend ECHO.
Forgive me for also jumping in on this, because I shouldn't be assuming this, but my understanding is that the plan is because the future build program is available to all students in the district, a student could be doing the house project, part of that program, be an ECHO student, and be part of Lane Pact. Just saying. I mean, as it currently stands, that would work.
That would be their path
Yes.
in.
Yep.
Yeah. Awesome. If you don't mind, second question about how do you support students with disabilities in apprenticeships in general? So that might be a question for Anthony. And how are BIPOC and women being not only recruited, but supported once they get into these programs and get into employment opportunities? Because I think we're getting better at recruiting non-traditional students or students who have been left out of many of these opportunities and employment opportunities, but we're not that great about supporting them once they get into them.
Yeah, so to answer your first question, we recently sort of overhauled our equal employment opportunity, which we used to call affirmative action plan, which includes programs who federally meet the minimum. So there's a lot of federal rules that like direct apprenticeship. One of which is if you have 5 or more apprentices in your program, then you need to submit what we call an affirmative action work plan. Now we're calling it an equal employment opportunity targeted plan. The semantics aside, we are finally now doing disability tracking with our apprentices. This was something that, since I came on staff exactly a year ago today, and that wasn't something that was in place previously. We're hoping what we can do is work with like the Department of Rehabilitation or to try, or I think the DIR, and excuse my if I don't get the acronyms right, but we really want to make apprenticeship accessible for everyone, right? For everyone who can physically do the work, whether it's a construction-based program, a medical assistant program. We have some behavioral mental health programs that we're hoping to open up in the pipeline in the future. We also are looking for some computer science programs to hopefully be able to offer in the future. So we're really trying to look outside of, I think when people think apprenticeship, they often think construction occupations. So we really want to expand what our definition of apprenticeship is. And I think in some of those programs, we're going to be able to find success with folks who have disabilities. We are working closely with the Oregon Commission for the Blind, and we're going to be touring their facilities as a state agency here shortly to learn about, to learn from them, because I don't think those conversations have taken place in the past. To answer your second question about underrepresented communities or populations within the industries, we really, really lean on our programs to be leaders when it comes to making it a safe, fair work site for everyone, regardless of what they look like or who they are. There are some horror stories in construction that I think continue to this day, especially if you're not someone who looks like the people who have been doing the work for forever, it seems like, right? And so we use our equal employment opportunity work team to really hold programs accountable to not only recruit and do outreach to these populations, but we also look at retention. And we really want to see if apprentices are making it past their first period. And the successful programs, what they're doing is they're having a women's group, they're having like an African American group, Latinx, Hispanic group, or even when they don't have like the populations to support one of these groups, is just to have an underrepresented group. Something as simple as like showing diversity on your website is going to make someone feel more comfortable. Hiring staff that look like the workforce that you want to attract is going to be a great strategy as well. So we really try to provide as much technical assistance as we can to make sure that our programs, our registered apprenticeship programs, are inclusive. There is still a ton of work to be done. Don't get me wrong. We recently sent surveys out to apprentices that left within their first year. And some of the things that we got back from them as to why they left, they really make you wonder what progress has been made, especially in this industry. There are great advocacy groups around the state, like Oregon Tradeswomen, who they operate a pre-apprenticeship program as well, but they're also like a legislative force when it comes to loosening or finding funds to support getting more women into the trades. So we know that this is an issue that we want to focus on, and I think this labor commissioner and the current director that we have for the apprenticeship and training division has put that at the focus of what our mission is currently.
Thanks, Anthony. And Shireen, I'm reading your mind. I'm going to just jump on quickly too, because a really important part of this conversation here tonight is that it is a two-parter. Surprise, it's a two-parter. So we don't have a save the date for you yet. However, we are actively building a panel and content for a second part to this conversation, which is so important and could not be kind of jammed into this 90 minutes with apprenticeship background and just information. And it will have everything to do with inclusion, equity, access into CTE programs, into apprenticeships, into the trades. And we'll have Dr. Irvin Brown, if anyone is familiar with his name. He's now with Bully. He's the DEI expert. And so we are going to have an awesome conversation around exactly that, Kelly, and we'll have a full 90 minutes to dedicate to it. That will be in April at some point. So we will send a save the date as soon as we have one. Shireen?
I was just gonna, you did read my mind, so I don't have to say that piece. The second part, I'm just gonna throw in there that Lane Pact, the intention is to work, and there's a lot of work to be done, but to try really to have a focus on recruiting those non-traditional underrepresented populations around the county. So I just want to say that that is it written in and the intent, and there's still work to be done. Another piece that we wrote in that we haven't been able to do, but it addresses some of the kind of, so now what happens? We get these folks in and then they have these awful experiences. And this is something that kind of to be decided when and how exactly, but to bring industry leaders from around Lane County and to have apprenticeship coordinators and to have a conversation, to have almost like a mini training, if you will, on some of these topics, and to really start to kind of chip away at a local level to have some work done to try to tackle it, because it is a big issue. I know, yeah. So
Yeah.
I'll stop there, but stay tuned for a date for a future panel. We're very excited.
Yeah, absolutely. Lacey?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention really quickly, I know we only have a couple minutes left, but the Lane Pact program is like brand spanking new for most of us. And so I have had like I'm optimistic that I'll have more success, but I've had some limited success working with students through Google Classroom because it is this extra thing. And when you hand them just this long checklist of things they have to get through before graduation, it just looks overwhelming. And so any student who's expressed interest, I've just created this pre-apprenticeship program at CGHS, like Google Classroom, and I invite any kid from any grade who expresses interest. And we just start with one thing at a time. I have a section for the OSHA 10 certification and a section for the trade skills fundamentals class information and a little section for just basic apprenticeship information if they want to do research. And so I just wanted to mention, if anybody has any ideas and wants to collaborate about how to actually implement that in your schools based on your school schedule and interest that you get from students, I am happy to chat more about that, because I'm always looking for ideas about how to reach more students and how to organize this program into something that students can do in bite sizes. Right.
Awesome, Lacey. Can you put your contact info in the chat for us? Thank you. There's a question in the Q&A box that I think I'll direct to Lee. Can you talk about 4J's Future Build program? Who are you targeting and how do they enroll / can students start third trimester?
Great question. We are full. We've got enough students right now. If a student wanted to start third trimester, it'd be very hard because we spent the first trimester going through all the safety protocols for this thing right now. So the way I understand that, we will not be taking any new students third trimester because we've already done the foundational work for the second trimester. So, but there'll be opportunities next year.
Thanks, Lee. Alrighty, I just put out for a last call. Any last minute questions? We have about 4 minutes left. So if you have any other questions, now is your time. Just wanted to say thank you. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. I'm so happy that this was informative, and genuinely, I learned a lot. And so I'm no longer afraid of apprenticeship questions. Alrighty, I'm seeing some thank yous, so I'm gonna go ahead and call it. Thank you, panelists, so much for being here. I really, really appreciate your insight and expertise. And thank you to everyone who joined us. I know it's late on a, what is it, Wednesday night? I don't even know what day of the week it is. Have a wonderful rest of your week, and I will send everything that was covered tonight in an email tomorrow. So if you didn't capture it, we're all good. Thank you again. Have a good night.
Thank you, Lizzie.
Absolutely.
Thank you
Bye.
so much, Lizzie, for putting this together. I really appreciate it.
Our pleasure. Thanks for getting it started. Thanks, Anthony. Alrighty.